Well, a warm and pleasant good evening from the Oklahoman's video studio. Steve, we're downtown. Can you believe this?
It's done, isn't it?
I'm Dave Morris alongside this guy, Steve Lackmeyer. We're chatting to you, Oklahoma City, and frankly the planet via newsok.com. Live tonight from the Century Center block party. We are at the Century Center building at Sheridan and Robinson. Steve covers downtown Oklahoma City. That is why he is so capably seated next to me tonight for the next hour.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, you can join us online at newsok.com. If you're in the vicinity, feel free to stop by. The block party here at the Century Center building is open 5 to 7. It's free. Feel free to stop by. There's a NewsOK app. If you have that, you can win some prizes from us, from Mahogany Steakhouse, from Revolve Pizza. And Steve, I'm going to toss it to you at this point because I remember we had a town hall meeting at the Oklahoman a few years ago.
Company town hall meeting.
2, 3, maybe 4 years ago. And Gary Pearson, our CEO, says, "Who thinks we should relocate to someplace cool," or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. You got up and said, "What about downtown?" And here we are.
Yeah, yeah. And what's great is we have all this interaction. Come on in.
Hey, guys.
You want to be online?
The goal tonight, by the way, is a very loose, casual, it's a block party, for goodness sakes. So.
That's right.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
So, are you getting to see the whole place today? So I think, let's see now, you've got the pizza place, Revolve Pizza, giving away some stuff.
Next we're going to get snow cone.
There's going to be some
snow
snow cones.
Oh, you got a snow cone?
Very nice.
Oh, there you go. What's your favorite flavor? Strawberry, cherry?
I don't know what kinds they have. Do you like red? I don't know what kinds they have. Mine's probably cherry.
Cherry.
Nothing wrong with cherry.
Yeah, mine's probably cherry also. I like orange.
Orange. This is breaking the mold right here. We got 2 reds and an orange. Maybe an OSU fan? Maybe.
Sort of.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you. Yeah, oh, you.
Got the fans early.
That's
I like
right.
it.
That's right.
Very cool. Thanks for stopping by tonight. We certainly appreciate it. Enjoy those snow cones and perhaps the pizza next door.
Thank you.
Yep, there's going to be some music, too, so enjoy yourselves tonight.
Thanks.
Thanks for visiting.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
And that's kind of the fun about tonight, Steve. It really is a come and go, and we're seeing a lot of people fill in the ground floor. Again, we're at
Wow, there's a lot of people coming in now.
Sheridan and Robinson, downtown Oklahoma City. It's a free event from 5 to 7. Feel free to stop in and talk. And again, Steve, we had that idea of where could the Oklahoman relocate? And of course, you covered downtown Oklahoma City, but I think you had some foreshadowing of the emergence of the cool factor, maybe?
Yeah, what's happening downtown is amazing, and it's only picked up steam the last few years. I knew the Myriad Gardens was becoming a real destination. It was kind of a sleepy place for a long time. It was never fully fleshed out. And Project 180 was really doing a great makeover where it's a gathering spot where the community comes every day, whether it's for free concerts, free movies, to ice skate during the winter.
Because you really could see that in the Myriad Gardens on a Sunday night when they got the movies up and running. And you're right, the ice skating, which they sort of had, I guess, over the past few years with opening night.
Right.
That was always a big deal, the Brahms skating rink, or whoever happened to be backing that at that point. You could see the interest in people's, like, if there's something going on downtown, if there's a reason for me to be there, perhaps I will go there.
And what was amazing was in the middle of all this life and vibrancy, you had one building that I knew very well that was sitting dormant for 20 years.
Now, Steve, I'm born and raised Oklahoma City, and you and I have worked at the Oklahoman for a long time. I'm working on 19 years. You've been here longer than this, 25 years, a quarter century, if you will. I pass this building all the time. The only time I would come into it is if I happen to park in the garage to go over to the Cox Center and manage to go through the wrong door and work my way through the maze. This was just a nondescript building that I avoided. Didn't even think about this.
Yeah, it was built during the urban renewal era as part of the Sheridan Hotel development. It was originally supposed to be a shopping mall. And you had some great buildings here. You had the Baum Hotel, you had the Criterion Theater, and they were torn down because they were going to remake downtown Oklahoma City. And they built this shopping mall, and it has garage parking 2 floors below and a couple floors above, and it just went nowhere. And it was dead by the mid-'80s. So come on in, it's all right.
I'm getting the feeling we should have had like Halloween.
Oh, it's all right. Actually, we have someone coming in who knows all about this building.
What's that?
You've been shanghaied.
Do it.
But come on in.
Oh man, here. I'm gonna do my
This is what's great is we've got some folks coming in who are actually a part of this project. Andy Burnett over here actually was one of the key guys that made this a reality.
What do you want?
Andy, we've got a mic
Andy?
over here. In
I
fact,
don't know what to do with my hand.
Don't worry about it. I'll actually, here, I'll let you
that's
sit
part
down.
of the fun, right?
Sit down. You all right? All right.
Andy,
Well, Andy, come
Andy,
on
if
over.
you want to grab a chair, and
Yeah.
frankly, there's a mic right down there if you want to grab one of
Yeah.
those.
All right. Where's the mic for him?
He's got
This
it.
is live, guys. All right.
This is how we do video.
Yeah.
Yes,
Is that a
yes,
mic?
sir, that's it.
All right. I'll hold it for you. Is that good?
Pull the rest of it. Your lavaliers at the end there.
Oh,
We're
here
going to
we
make up Andy
go.
Burnett here. Greg Singleton is helping us produce on the floor today. I actually sent Greg outside to grab some B-roll of the footage just because there's so many people. How are you,
Yeah,
sir? It's
this
good to
is
see
great.
you.
Good to
see you.
Dave Morris.
Good?
Yeah.
And that's Greg. He's going to throw a mic on you real fast. But Steve, you were saying Andy has an intimate knowledge of what's going on here.
Andy and Steve Hurst and some other partners, they had bought this building just before we were starting to look at having to move. And Andy had shared with me a little bit about what their ambition was, to finally really take off the concrete, tilt-up concrete facade and turn it into something really wonderful. And I told them, I think this is our opportunity. It was about this. It was right after that town hall meeting. And Andy, you guys did an amazing job here.
What about this location and building captured your eye?
Oh, we liked the location, obviously, being across the street from the park, being across the street from the Devon Tower. We felt like our basis in it was pretty good, and we were bullish on downtown Oklahoma City. And like Steve said, it was over coffee that we kind of put you guys together as our main tenant. Steve said, that space looks really similar to the New York Times.
It's very true.
And,
That's right. In fact, the facade outside is very similar to what they have there.
Yeah.
Just not quite as tall.
He felt like it would lay out pretty well. Yeah, not quite as tall.
And what's amazing was what they were planning and what they had to work with was already looking at. You couldn't help but think about the New York Times setup when you looked at their early concepts that hadn't even become public yet.
Yeah.
Andy, when you look at a building like this, do you think, okay, I need an anchor tenant, and then we'll go, with the perimeter or the periphery, other businesses? Is that how you look at something
Absolutely.
like this?
You got to figure out how you're going to pay your bills.
Okay.
And so an anchor tenant is pretty important. We were actually the Bob Moore Auto Group. Mark Moore was a partner on this deal, and they were going to be our anchor tenant. We were pretty excited about them, and we had a grocery store somewhat in the works on the first floor. And then
Well, I hate to get in the way of a grocery store because I live downtown, but we need a grocery store.
We do. I live downtown as well.
So you know all about it as well.
We're trying.
But
We're trying.
to
The
be
economics
fair-
are difficult.
But to be fair,
We
the
were-
grocery store was not working. We didn't bounce out of the grocery store.
Yeah,
Because
we
I
were-
don't want anyone to come by and try to lynch me now.
Steve,
we were
could have
pretty far
We could have had
apart.
some produce if it wasn't for that newspaper.
Yeah, no, that's not what happened.
We were still pretty far apart.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We were close though.
And now it's amazing though. I mean, you're almost fully leased here, aren't you?
We're 96%.
Wow.
Yeah.
But do you have your share of doubters when you first started?
Yes, my wife actually called me a little crazy when she first drove by. She didn't like all the orange concrete.
I was just telling Steve before you guys walked in, I'm born and raised in Oklahoma City. I drove by this building for years, and you just looked right past it because there was nothing happening here. It had that stucco facade, the orange, and
Yeah, there
was
was no
awful.
windows. It was just a very dark, ugly building. But you knew the bones were right and the location was right. If you could find an anchor tenant, you can make it work.
And I just want to say thank you to Mrs. Burnett and the kids for your patience.
she just gave us the thumbs up sign.
Isabel.
And if you want to introduce any of your kids, that'd be fine.
Oh, no, that's fine.
They're okay?
Yeah. She wants to come join me on the interview.
Get on TV.
Sure.
Where?
You're
Right
on
there.
it now.
See? Right there. Say hi. Come on, Elizabeth.
Oh, that's TV at its best right there.
Yeah.
You're involved in another really exciting project on Film Row. Things are going well there?
Yeah, things are going great. We actually had a pretty good meeting today. We're pursuing HUD financing, so that's slowing the clock down just a little bit, but
But you guys have been making clear it's going to be a slow but steady process.
Slow
this
but
is not
steady.
an overnight project.
that's right. We presented plans today to DDRC for buildings A, D, and C, I believe, or A, B, and D.
That's right.
Yeah.
And to remind folks, we're talking about over 300 units of housing, is that right?
Around 350.
Yeah, and then we're going to have quite a bit of retail around the Fred Jones assembly plant, a 99-year-old building that was originally home to a Ford Model T plant. which is amazing. And I also met today with Graham Colton, the recording artist, hometown favorite. And they're making nice progress with their plans for a restaurant.
And that's across the street, right?
No, it's actually part of that whole block.
Okay.
Their restaurant, and they've got a bar and lounge that also doubles as a music venue. Excuse me. And they're anticipating starting work here fairly soon. They've got a chef on board, and they'll be announcing their concept and their name pretty soon. And they're also looking to really emphasize that area's history. And there's some good, exciting news still coming on that whole block, I think.
Lots of fun stuff coming.
Anyway.
Andy Burnett has joined us live on newsok.com. It's the Century Center Block Party downtown. Sheridan and Robinson, feel free to stop by. It is free till about 7 o'clock tonight. Bring the kiddos.
Thank you,
snow
Andy.
cones.
Good
Andy,
stuff. Appreciate it.
thank you so much for hopping on with us.
Thank
Greg
you.
will get you on mic here real fast.
Thank you.
You know, it's interesting to see the urban core, the excitement, and, and the changing, just focused right here. You have a developer like that who could probably go wherever he wanted to, focus in whatever area, but smart businessmen are saying, hey, there's potential down here.
Yeah, and we're continuing to see downtown's perimeters extend to the west, to the east.
That's the location we were just talking about, to the west there with 21C.
There's a lot more exciting news coming out
Film Road.
on West Downtown. It was an area that previously was written off as being too blighted to overcome with vagrancy and crime to really have anything happen, and it is just taking off. It is just amazing. And what's also interesting is we're seeing a test of how far the city is diversified. It's well known.
You're talking about not just about the energy sector, right? You're talking about the actual financial backing of a city.
Yeah, and there's actually two companies now that would be nice additions to downtown. They're not the size of Devon, but they are they're sizable enough that they'd be nice additions, and they're both looking at moving their headquarters to downtown.
You gonna name names for us?
No, I can't name names
Upcoming
yet.
edition of the OKC Central, or
we'll be reporting it as warranted, but hopefully those deals will happen, and I suspect both will involve new construction.
It sounds like those would also be not necessarily in the energy industry.
That's right. Both of them are outside the energy industry, which would be a nice addition to the mix as well.
I mentioned I've been at the Oklahoma for 19 years. He's been here for 25 years. It's been quite the change. I was going back through the archives and reading a story you wrote earlier this year. The newspaper's roots date back to 1889, and there were 5 different locations before the Oklahoman building that still says the Oklahoman, where I believe the YMCA office is right now.
Yeah, one of the things that has been a challenge to me as I've tried to research the city's history and also the newspaper's history is there's 2 different accounts, because the Oklahoma Publishing Company obviously was started in 1904. I better get that history right.
Just masthead stuff, that's okay.
Sweating it. But then the Oklahoman supposedly got started in 1893. But then I was hearing other accounts, including in the Encyclopedia of Oklahoma Newspapers and in official state history sources, that started in 1889. So I went back into the archives at the Oklahoma History Center, pulled up a lot of microfilm, and I found out what happened. And yes, we do trace our roots back to 1889, and it may amuse our colleagues over at the Oklahoma Gazette that we were the Gazette first.
It wasn't the Daily Oklahoman.
It was the Evening Gazette. And at a certain point, there was a Reverend Sam Small, who wanted to start up a newspaper here, and he attached himself to the operation at the Gazette.
Now, if I remember correctly from your story, his aspiration was to make it the official newspaper of the Democratic Party.
Well, that was common back then.
Okay.
You'd have newspapers that were either Republican or Democratic organs. You also had hotels that were officially Democratic or Republican hotels.
I didn't know about that.
Like the Huckin and Skirvin.
Huh.
Yeah, that was common as well. And don't put me on the spot to ask me which was which. I want to say the Huckins was Democrat and Skirvin was Republican, but
well, certainly don't ask me.
But that was common. You have partisanship in everything, and I guess history is coming back around, whether it's good or bad. But in some ways, especially with cable news.
So there's that. But the Oklahoman building over on Broadway or Gaylord.
Yeah, everyone thought that was the first one, but no.
That's like the fifth one.
Yeah.
So then we moved out to Britain and Broadway, and we're there for...
We moved there in '91, and we moved out in January. So
I never officed at any other place at the Oklahoman except for that building.
I was first hired at 4th and Broadway. And you see the historic building now, and that's where the administrative offices were. And you had a great cafeteria in the basement. But the newsroom was in this annex that was built in the 60s. And it looked like an old-fashioned newsroom. And
smoking and everything, right?
Yeah, there's one guy in this newsroom now who was smoking in that newsroom when I first arrived.
Mike Shannon?
I can't imagine that would be him. Who else is there?
I mean, not to name names, Mike Shannon.
Yeah, he's our guy.
Yeah, well,
so he's our history.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing time to be downtown too, because it was the last vestige of the old newsroom there were typewriters still and all that.
This building here, we're at the Century Center block party at the Century Center building. We are bookend, if you will, by a couple really good eatery places. We have Revolve Pizza Kitchen to the north, to the south, Mahogany Prime Steakhouse back behind us, the YMCA. I was going to ask Andy, he mentioned this building was 96% occupied.
Yeah.
What the other 4% was.
There's one small space that faces Sheridan Avenue, and it's probably best for a doctor's office. It's kind of a L shape that crawls out. It has one or two windows, but it would be best for a doctor's office probably.
Sheridan Downtown Hotel, of course, is back towards the east of us. St. Anthony's Physicians Group, Bank SNB.
Yep.
They kind of fill out the Century Center building, if you will. Now tonight, we mentioned there's a lot of activity going on, a lot of people roaming around, the kiddos and the family. It's great to see the community involved here tonight.
Yeah.
There's also musicians outside Mahogany, outside Revolve, back in the lobby behind us with the elevators and over at the Sheridan. Those musicians, local musicians from ACM at UCO, yet another local angle to tonight.
Oh, it was huge. You know, when I was teasing that story was about to be broken and everyone was trying to figure out what it was, and I posted a photo of School of Rock, and everyone thought it was a Hard Rock Cafe, and I said then, and I'll say it again, it was far better than a Hard Rock Cafe. I'll take ACM over that any day.
ACM's a very cool thing, and there's such a good base of local musicians here.
Oh, it's been amazing for our local music scene. Plus, think of the talent that's been in there. Jackson Brown. You've had...
Ben Folds was there.
Yep, Roger Daltrey was in there.
Just to drop names.
Yeah. You know, we still need, Paul McCartney in there probably.
Maybe some Billy Joel. That'd be good, right?
Oh, I'd love to see Billy Joel in there. He's playing in Madison Square for about the next 10 years.
He's got like a residency for as long as he wanted there.
Yeah, it's an amazing deal.
I mentioned St. Anthony Physicians Group is here. They are among those participating in some of the fun tonight. They're giving away gift certificates and a Fitbit, if you will. Steve, they, I believe, perhaps moved from up the street at First National Center. That's right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the stories you've been tracking. What's new right up the street at First National Center?
It's better now than it was on Wednesday.
It's amazing how much that changed in about a week, right?
Yeah, we've been covering that pretty much nonstop for this past month. First National is really one of our incredible historic resources. It was built in 1931. It's got this incredible great banking hall. And it's been under very, very poor management and ownership for quite some time. And as of this last couple of years, you have this guy who either owns it still or owned it, now a convicted felon.
Aaron Yashofar, I believe.
Yep. And now you've got a judge saying he can't tell who owns it. And meanwhile,
Judge Friet.
Yep. And we don't know if we'll know in the next 7 years whether that'll be resolved. But it was getting bad. The air conditioner was shut off. The elevators had quit working, the escalators had quit working. It was getting to be a very bad situation.
Well, and in a structure that historic and that tall, you sort of need air conditioning and elevators.
Yeah, and so it was going to be a public safety issue, and the judge finally recognized this can't go on. And so he put it in receivership on Thursday, and within 24 hours, the receiver, Jim Perrick, a very respected guy in the real estate industry, and an experienced receiver, he did Crossroads Mall, he had the air conditioning turned back on in 10 hours.
Now, how did he do that? Did he just know the right people to talk to?
Yeah.
It seems like, hey, if there's a problem, stuff isn't getting done, somebody else comes in and gets it done. How does that happen?
The night before the receiver was appointed, he had been advised this might happen, and he got on the phone with Bank First and arranged for a potential line of credit. And then he knows the people who can get things done.
Because it does take money.
Did you ever see the movie Pulp Fiction?
Sure.
What was it, Mr. Wolf? Jim Perrick's, I guess, the Mr. Wolf in some ways.
He's playing the role of Mr. Wolf.
He gets in there and he gets it fixed very quickly.
That's what it takes.
And it's impressive, but you can go in there now and actually take the escalator up to the great banking hall, and there's no threatening signs preventing you from doing so.
One of the things Steve Lackmeyer has reported that could go into the First National Center, a hotel, and you're right, that great banking hall just lends itself to something like that.
And then you might have seen the photo in the Sunday Oklahoman of this great potential atrium space that you could create above that. This place has so much potential, and I think most developers I've talked to who want to do something on this have talked about doing a great banking hall as this great lobby and restaurant space, et cetera, for a hotel, and going up 10 flights or whatever for a hotel. The other dozen floors or so you would have as housing, apartments or condos.
How nice would that be?
With an incredible
be a fantastic
home on the top floor in the old Beacon Club. And then you'd have retail restored to the first floor, and then some office space still. So that's what we're looking at, and I think we're going to see this happen.
I've been up top at, what's it called, City Place?
Yes, and they've already done some conversion.
They have that condo up top there, and it is fantastic.
Hey, Dave, we've got some folks here I want to
talk to. Let's bring them
in. These folks, so Dina, I just saw you this morning at the Bricktown Urban Design meeting.
All over the place.
Hello, sir. Dave Morris.
Can we grab one more chair up here by chance?
We've got a chair right there. Paige will get you guys mic'd up. We'll throw you on. It's the Citrus Center block party. We are chatting live with Steve Lackmeyer. It's a come and go situation. It's free 5 to 7, so another hour and a half here. Talking about downtown Oklahoma City, the development that's going on down here. And again, it's an open house tonight for the Oklahoman, Mahogany Prime Steakhouse, Revolve Pizza Kitchen, the YMCA, Sheridan, a cast of thousands here. Steve, who's joining us?
Okay, let me have both of you introduce yourselves and talk about what you're doing in this town as far as trying to make a change with a potential MAPS 4.
We will start with you first there.
Okay, I'm Doug Servin. I'm one of the pastors at City Presbyterian Church on 13th and Chartel.
Beautiful restoration you've done there.
We've been there. We've been planning the church for 4 years. We bought the building a year and a half ago, and so I'm really interested in what makes Oklahoma City a better city, loving the city, seeing the city flourish, and whatever it is that the city cares about to celebrate those things.
And so, Dean, I just saw you this morning. But talk about your role with this effort.
So I'm Sandino Thompson, and I executive director for It's My Community Initiative, also director of urban services for a company called Public Strategies, and we do a lot of work in the northeast side and actually throughout the state and Oklahoma City around workforce development. We have some programs that deal with those re-entering society, deal with long-term unemployed. We do a lot of family strengthening work, just around sort of education and that kind of thing. So, and then in addition to that, I've got a background in engineering personally. I spent 10 years in the construction industry doing neighborhood revitalization work in that field, along with commercial and military and other kind of construction. So it's really kind of a bridge for me. I've kind of spent a lot of time with the social aspect of things, and also spent a lot of time with the built environment aspect of things, and moved back to Oklahoma City about 5 years ago, and just really felt like it was time to be home, and it was time to really try and make the change or be the change that you want to see. This was an opportunity that I had kind of run into a few folks who were thinking about it, and once I heard about it, I said, yeah, this is what we need. I spent a lot of time in Ward 7, and so it just felt like we really need to be a part of that conversation, and so that's kind of how I came to the Maps for Neighborhoods idea.
You know, as we get into that, I've been thinking myself about, okay, downtown's really hitting a point where it's gotten critical mass and it's really moving forward and it's got its own momentum. And I've wondered, how do we apply this success story to the rest of the city? And you look at efforts very fledgling. I mean, they're early on, but you see Southwest 29th, you see Capitol Hill, you see the MLK 23rd and 36th and Kelly. You see opportunities elsewhere. You see the Windsor area on the west side. And I know I look at the town of Britain off of Britain and Broadway, and I'm thinking, that can be something. How do we do this? And that's something you all have been trying to figure out. You've got some ideas. So talk about that, how this discussion started and what you're thinking.
Well, we just started gathering together and realizing there's a tremendous opportunity as we finish up MAPS 3, and what a tremendous success these have been, to say what could we do if we started thinking, forward thinking about MAPS 4. If that were to happen, what would the community want to see? We're celebrating the successes of these endeavors for our city, and then wanting to spread that out. And so we've talked about connectivity, culture, and health. And really, it's a shared conversation. It's not a secret group. It's not a special thing, but to just say, what would it look like if we as a city talked about those things? What can we do so that it is out of downtown and more in all of Oklahoma City?
Right.
What would it look like if we shared that culture and looked at the different cultures, not just one? And then how could we be a healthy city? You know, Mayor Mick Cornett has been talking about being a healthy city. So what can we do if we agreed and spent money on that health so that we become more and more healthy? And so we've been kicking around ideas, but really not trying to say this is what it would look like, but say what is that conversation, to say what would different communities want so that we could make the best Oklahoma City that we could have.
Doug, you're a city Presbyterian there at 13th and Chartel, so your congregation, I'm assuming, is from multiple communities. So what are you hearing to those questions?
What we're hearing is we love what's going on in downtown, and we want to share that out, like what you're saying, or what you mentioned, Steve. So what would it look like to have art in other places? What would it look like to have shared spaces in other places? That MAPS 3, you know, a part of that tiny spot was to make the sidewalk all the way up Penn, which hadn't been there.
It's a little thing, but it's a huge thing, isn't it?
Exactly. I've run down Penn and
the connectivity
been
you're
scared.
talking about. Sure.
Exactly, that connectivity.
Well, your head's on a swivel because there's a car somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we were just talking when we were before we came in about, you know, how frequently, and it's not like it happens all the time, but it happens frequently enough. Classen, Martin Luther King, some of these major thoroughfares we have, and you'll see folks in wheelchairs, that kind of thing.
It's true.
Traveling essentially in the gutter of the street,
Which is horrible,
where there aren't sidewalks.
Yeah.
So I mean, so there are those kinds of things around connectivity. You know, and I mean, I was born and raised here, so for me, it's also thinking about just kind of the big picture. It's like MAPS as a brand. I grew up when Bricktown was coming online. I grew up when we were just talking about those things. So there's real. It's real for me in that sense, is that I remember the first MAPS programs. I remember, you know, when the canal went in. I remember, you know, the rivers coming up. I remember when the ballpark got built. And so I just know as MAPS has evolved over time, what we've kind of talked about is also just the sense of responsibility for that brand and for that what next and what things look like. So we built a lot of spaces, and we built spaces that have been filled with amazing things. It spurred a lot of development, it spurred a lot of opportunity, spurred a lot of hope. But we, you know, at a point with MAPS 1, we did infrastructure. With MAPS 4, with MAPS for kids, we did, you know, the school buildings and that kind of thing. And then with MAPS 3, we kind of did other capital improvements, big investments. Well, so with MAPS for kids, for instance, speaking about, you know, the northeast side, but I know it's true in other areas. So we've created some of the nicest buildings in the community. They're new buildings, very nice buildings.
And no sidewalks?
No sidewalks. Yeah. But even if you look at what's going on with the community that's engaging with those buildings. So I think about the built environment, but also how we interact with the built environment. So what about you know, in the next maps, addressing some of those people concerns, right? So not just maps for the places, but also for the people. And so when we think about the brand, as Doug was saying, I mean, this is an opportunity for us to maybe take a little bit different approach, open up some conversation to the community, to the wider community. And I know that's kind of it's a bit of a dangerous or scary thing because you don't know what's going to come out of it. But we also know these are the citizens, the stakeholders, the community members who participate, engage here. So it's important, we think, that people feel like they have a place and a voice.
Because people get excited when you start talking about building up their community or seeing a community built, whether it's Wheeler or whatever. They're like, hey, what if we took that idea to my neck of the woods?
You know, when I was covering this redevelopment of the Northeast Shopping Center at 36th and Kelly, which I found out was originally called Highland Shopping Center. And I've now seen some photos of what that looked like earlier on. And it actually wasn't that bad looking early on. I mean, somebody really mucked it up. But as I do this investment and I look around, I'm saying, there's no sidewalks. And it's supposed to be a neighborhood shopping center. And the streets are very narrow. They're not modern streets in terms of lane width and walkability and all that. And I realized there's really no plan. You know, and you've got Councilman Pettis, Ward 7 Councilman, really fighting for his ward and trying to move things forward, but there's so much that's got to be done out there. And I wonder how many other areas of town can benefit from that.
Yeah, well, and I think you bring up a good point. I mean, so we talked about like the connectivity piece, and obviously that's pretty tangible for people to see when you talk about sidewalks, roads, transportation infrastructure. I mean, there are, and I think for us, we don't just think about maps in that regard as a way to get roads and sidewalks and that kind of thing. I mean, we do talk about the culture aspect and the health aspect. I think what's important is to think about maps. What has been throughout my life and history of seeing it for the past 20 years is a catalyst for creating opportunity and creating things to take hold. So I mean, I don't think that maps will solve all the city's problems or maps for neighborhoods will solve every neighborhood's problems. But what we think is that if we invest strategically in neighborhoods and where there are some opportunities and where there is good support and good effort, then we'll see good things come out of that, and it will overflow into other areas. And that's the real opportunity maybe that we see in the Maps 4 neighborhood.
Now, you know, and I don't know if it's a competing interest or it's complementary, but you know, there is an interest out there to see public transit addressed as part of Maps 4. How do you see those being discussed as we get closer to Maps 3 wrapping up and potential for Maps 4? I mean, do you see those being complementary, or do you think they're going to end up competing?
They're very complementary because they speak to that connectivity piece where people can get around and move to different places and then have the ability to create a better life, because they're not trapped in their little zone necessarily, but then they appreciate where they are and they come back to it and they're grateful for it. And so like the connectivity plus the health and culture makes that place fantastic to where people are proud of it and they're thankful for it and they want to invite other people to it, and you can get to it in more ways than just one. And I think that's so important.
People are riding bicycles to music events at your church.
Right.
Dozens of them I find on typical events, it seems like. So
I can give you, there are a few tangible kind of examples that I think about, and I can speak more about the Northeast side. It's what I'm familiar with, but I think it applies definitely to places like Capitol Hill, some of the other close-in neighborhoods that are really screaming for some attention and some investment. But we have the Adventure Line and the Katy Trail. And so for us, that's a connectivity thing. It's obvious infrastructure. So the idea of better connecting Bricktown, Deep Deuce, essentially to the Adventure District, which I think there's a lot of benefits to tying those two things together. But then there's this community in between. And there's an opportunity for us to talk about how we expose the city and engage with the city with the culture that exists there. Because there are a lot of things on that side of town. I mean, you're a historian, so I mean, when you talk about the history of Deep Deuce, talk about the history of Oklahoma as in Oklahoma City as a place of hope and opportunity. I grew up with those stories, and it's like we don't really tell them, and they're not really accessible. People don't really feel like they can come to that side of town and engage with whether it's the food culture or the rodeo culture or the music culture. So those kind of things create not just a thoroughfare for bikes or for trains, but also I think for engagement with the community. And so that's kind of what we think about.
You know, Dave, there's such an amazing history and culture that has been downplayed in the Northeast Side. The Ralph Ellison Library could be such a hub for literature. I mean, Ralph Ellison.
The Ralph Ellison.
I mean, just an amazing author and an amazing body of work with a international following, and we don't highlight that enough.
It's hard to get there.
Sometimes, I mean, it's remarkable because if you go to New York, I mean, people know about Ralph Ellison because he was instrumental in that sort of Harlem Renaissance, that transition period of that time period. Langston Hughes, I mean, you have all these folks who talk about Ralph Ellison. And what was Ralph Ellison doing? He was talking about Oklahoma. He was talking about where he was from and this uniquely Oklahoman culture where you had all these people from different parts. I mean, you have slaves coming off the plantation. You had men, women, and children. Women sometimes leading the efforts into these land runs or just settlements in general. So what Oklahoma City was for him, I mean, he talks about so eloquently. When we start talking about, we want to be the next Dallas or the next Austin, it's like, no, we have a culture here, and we have icons like a Ralph Ellison who have actually showed a pathway.
And to show you how relevant he is, I just read an article in the New York Times the other day where someone was talking about in their community, and of course we still have a big issue with race relations in this country, but they were talking about what they had encountered was not your overt cliche racism, but he talked about the experience of being the invisible man, Ralph Ellison's invisible man, and what that meant. And I just stopped. I had to read that twice, and I'm like, I know what he's talking about. And it's amazing that this is still extremely relevant, maybe even more relevant than it was.
Right.
As this subtlety has crept into all that. We've not dealt with it enough. And then you've also got Jimmy Rushing. There's a great YouTube video of him on a PBS special in San Francisco in the late 60s. And it is hilarious. It's incredible music. And he was an incredible character. And I loved it. And I posted it online, and I'm thinking, where can you go in the city to really
access it? To access and feel that.
And I look at 23rd and MLK, and I look at the proposed development, I'm thinking, and I look at what y'all are talking about, I'm thinking, I hope that we're able to figure that out. And I've got no idea as to how to do it.
Well, we feel like it's coming. I mean, so one way or the other. And so and that's the thing. There's a groundswell. There are a lot of young professionals, folks who are new to the city, but also those who returned. Since I've been back, I'm encouraging classmates, other folks who I know who are out there. And I spent time in the Floridas and the Texas, but this is home, and there are a lot of things for us to say about this place, and there are a lot of uniquely Oklahoman things. Like talk about the culture, so like the idea of being able to invest now with our Maps for Neighborhoods in the infrastructure for Ralph Ellison as a library. I mean, it's just it's a nice amenity for the neighborhood. But what about it as a cultural location and a beacon?
It could be so much more.
You build around
absolutely. Absolutely. So those are the kinds of opportunities we think we want to engage with the community, with the surrounding communities, with the neighborhoods. But those are the opportunities we think are possible. It's like, let's think about how we tell that story, how we bring it into the 21st century and really make it real with all the things we got going on around the country. Here in Oklahoma City, we have our challenges and our strengths, but let's play those up and let's engage with those conversations.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Right. Sometimes that's the most powerful thing is thinking and an idea.
Yeah.
Get that groundswell.
Yeah.
Chatting with Cedino Thompson, I believe.
Yes.
May have said that correctly. Yeah. Doug Servin. The Century Center block party here. People are still.
Thank you all for joining us. This was
it's a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Great to be here. Thank Thank you.
And some incredible community gatherings at your church, incredible live acoustic music that takes place. Thank you for all you've done to open up your historic building. And as a matter of fact, that church building was where E.K. Gaylord I was a member.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
And he was able to walk to church back then.
That's right. He built that church.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Well, it was a fantastic building, that's for sure.
Yeah. So,
Guys, thanks so much. We'll let you
Thank
go
you.
and get back to the Century Center block party.
Yeah, there's
Thank
a
you.
scavenger hunt or something, so I
Yeah.
gotta go get some
It was great to
dots
meet
on
you
it.
guys.
Yeah, appreciate it.
thank you
Thanks,
for
Steve.
coming by. Appreciate
Greg
it.
will get you guys unmiked, and again, it's the Century Center block party. Steve, we're about to wrap up here. We've been live for almost an hour. And
Are there any questions that have been posted that we need to answer real quick?
I think people saw me log in and said, no, we want to chat with Steve, not Dave. So I'm not seeing any questions
Okay,
here.
we're
But if
good
any of
then.
those come in, we'll certainly
Which is fine.
throw them your way. Hey, Steve, one other thing I want to talk to you about before we get out of here. Coming up this weekend, Hotel Black, which is right down
Yeah.
the street. The implosion, it's Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Yet another historic moment in Oklahoma City, really.
Yeah, we've not seen an intended demolition implosion like this downtown since the days of Urban Renewal in the 70s. A lot of people might remember the implosion of the Biltmore Hotel. I think it was 77, 78. I watched that myself. It was one of my earliest downtown experiences. And there were quite a few implosions in the 70s, but really we've not seen a kind of block clearance like this since then. We're looking at a 27-story tower being built there, a couple of garages. The Hotel Black, which was later an office building, was built in 1930. The Auto Hotel built about the same time. And this wasn't without some controversy, but they are being torn down.
There's two structures that will be imploded Sunday morning, again at 8 o'clock, and
I
they're
think they're
starting
both like
to
11 stories.
they're starting to shut down the streets this weekend, right?
Yeah, they'll start shutting down some streets Saturday morning, and then others will be shut down Saturday evening. They'll remain closed through Sunday at 5, so your downtown access will be complicated. If you really want to watch this, my best suggestion, if you want to go outside and watch it there downtown, is there's St. Mary Gardens. You may have a few other people there. And I do believe we'll be carrying that live on News OK.
We will go as live as we possibly can
Yeah.
on newsok.com with the implosion.
I'm covering that, yes. So, but yeah, this is another pretty big moment in downtown history, and it's going to change the skyline pretty dramatically.
Very cool, Steve. I'll get you out of here on this. His chat every Friday morning, I believe, at 10:30. Is that correct?
Every Friday morning at 10:30, yes.
Every Friday morning at 10:30 on newsok.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Steve Lackmeyer. OKCCentral.com is his blog. Lots of good downtown information. Anything you want to tell us about you have coming up this weekend that you're working on?
Oh, goodness. I'll have more coverage on the demolition. There's a couple of other projects going on downtown that I'll be reporting on, but I don't want to. We've got a busy couple days left, so.
It's only Wednesday after all.
Yeah.
Plenty more reporting to be done.
Yeah.
All right, well, this has been fun. We'll wrap it up now. We've been live from the Century Center block party at the Century Center building. Here in the Oklahoman's Video Studio, I'm Dave Morris alongside Steve Lackmeyer. Again, follow his coverage in the Oklahoman and newsok.com for Todd Frazier, Paige Dillard, Greg Singleton, and everybody else here tonight. Good night from the Century Center.